Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm in the content team of Instilt. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you so much for your time. I'm gonna take it off, so can you please introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Nilabh. I am 19. I'm in university in Vancouver, Canada. I started Instilt Educate a couple of years ago. I'm currently involved in running it as the CEO.
First, I'd like to say that it's such an honor to get to talk to you today. And I've been in Instilt for just a few months now, and it has been a very rewarding experience. And I'm excited to learn more about why'd you actually this leads to my first question. Why did you decide to create Instilt?
I think the idea was born out of circumstances that I saw around me broadly. I just moved from Sri Lanka to India, and then obviously in my local area, I was coming across a lot of people that could use help with English that was struggling with English language. I think how it started initially was my mom wanted me to help some child of one of the people that helped out around the house. And my mom wanted me to sort of like teach them English a little bit because it was like the peak of COVID, schools were shut, and they were struggling to learn English. And that's sort of where I got the idea from that, okay, if I could help them, I could probably help more kids who are in a very similar situation. And what was really interesting at the time was because of COVID, because of the pandemic, kids, regardless of their financial background, were forced into using technology. They were all forced into using Zoom classes because that was the only means of sort of facilitating an education. Um, and to some extent, that's the silver lining I saw there. So maybe we can leverage the same technology to provide classes to them that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. So I could be teaching kids that I wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to teach, and they'd have the opportunity to have classes again that they won't otherwise have access to. It initially started off as just something that I would do on a very small scale, like, hey, I'm gonna find like 10 to 15 kids that I can help out. And it was super fulfilling. And I remember I posted about it somewhere and it started garnering some interest. And then a few people joined, and then it just sort of hasn't stopped since that day. And I think that's, yeah, we've been very fortunate with everything so far.
Yeah, I know you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but were your friends and family supportive?
Oh, for sure. I think at the very start, as I mentioned previously, it was something that was suggested by my mom. And so it'd be like very weird to say that they weren't supportive. I think my friends obviously maybe at the very start were kind of skeptical because it was something that seemed very ambitious, right? Like for someone in high school to sort of start this from scratch, especially in a completely new city. But I would say with time, as they sort of saw what was going on and when they saw like actual tangible results, most of them wanted to help out and wanted to help me build what I was trying to build. And I think in general, I wouldn't have sort of been able to get, or like we wouldn't have been able to get to this point if it hadn't been for the support of friends and family, really.
So what were the first steps to put your idea into action?
So I think the very first step of putting the ideas into action started with realizing what it was that I wanted to do, because I think there were a lot of organizations that, and that still are, that do a very fantastic job of trying to teach English within India, and that try to educate the masses in India. But the first and foremost sort of priority was, what are we doing differently, or what do I want to do differently? What, because if there is something that's already being done, I could have easily just sort of gone and joined an existing organization or a mission that had the same cause. And I think there was time that I took out to research and see, hey, is there someone that's doing this exact thing? Because why would I sort of divert resources away from them in trying to start the very exact same mission? I think I wasn't able to come across something, or like to the best of my knowledge, I couldn't find something of the sort. That's one, I think, key step was checking for a proof of concept, checking for an existing model that sort of carried the same mission. Then came the part about doing everything in my power to bring all of my existing networks and connections into use. So what can I do right now to get myself students and to get access to students that could use my help? And a lot of that was about contacting people I knew that I think would help me bridge that sort of create a bridge to have access to these children. At the same time, where could I find the tutors? And so I think I spent day and night just looking at like different forums and making posts on posts about like, hey, there's this like project I'm working on. Does anyone want to help out? Um, and ideating to some extent what this would look like, because I would have to sort of sell my vision to everyone, right? I would have to, for you to want to help out with this project, I would have to sell you my vision. And for that, I would have to have a very clear vision in mind. The third part is at the same time, I think a very crucial thing that I think a lot of people miss out on is, again, to be able to facilitate impact, you have to be in a position to create impact, right? If I don't have a running website that explains what I'm doing, or if I don't have a plan for how I'm going to get to from point A to point B, or if I don't have a timeline, or if I don't have posters that explain what we're working on, or things that could easily translate again that vision to someone, that takes away from people's ability to see where I'm going, and that takes away from their ability in sort of helping the cause become what it could be. So I think one of the very first things I did was start thinking about the website right away. Like, how can I get this going? How can I start sort of creating a web page? Because if it is something that relies on like online technology, right, like online video call and all of that, then I have to make sure that it is available on the internet, and it is something that you can come across on the internet and see, oh, okay, this seems like something that is interesting, something that I could work on. Because I knew that I wanted tutors from different parts of the world, and I knew that that is what would make it unique exposure for the kids that I was trying to help out. And what would appeal to them was about understanding what would motivate them to think of a project like this, or to help out with a project like this.
You kind of answered my question already, but how hard was the recruiting process in the beginning of recruiting tutors, and even kids to teach, or tutor, I mean. But do you think nowadays it would be easier?
I don't think a lot has changed since then. I think if anything, it's gotten harder to some extent in my eyes. Um, why I say that is because that was again pandemic, and so everyone was looking for things to do online. And now, since things have opened up, people have a lot more opportunities in their sort of local spheres that they can get involved with physically in person. And so that like that appeal that like online initiatives had during the pandemic, because almost born out of necessity, that doesn't quite carry over in the same way now. Um, that being said, in terms of like big challenges that I faced, I think the biggest the biggest was in terms of students was being able to reach, or like, the right audience, and being able to convey to them that, hey, this is something that we're going to do to help you out. And just like navigating the bureaucracies with like schools was maybe one of the most painstaking processes that we've had to go through, because you realize somehow how these schools are so set in their ways, and they're so hesitant to take on new
Mhm.
initiatives, possibly because they've had poor experiences in the past, or they're unsure of whether such an initiative could help them. But to be able to sort of convince a school to commit to us and to commit their students to attend our classes was one of the most challenging processes, because of this almost traditionalist mentality that exists within these schools, where they are sort of convinced that their pedagogy and their like existing resources are more than
Mhm.
sufficient. Well, which we know in reality don't quite help kids to the extent that they need it. Um, on the recruitment front, I think we've had a lot of luck with recruitment. Um, Initially, it was quite slow, but um, through like an iterative process, I think we began to understand what is it that appeals to these people, right? And I don't think you'd believe it, but we changing words in the questions and the application form helped. Changing how the poster was laid out helped. And we were like monitoring the application form drop-off rate to see at what questions were people like stopping filling out the form, right? At what questions would they leave filling out the form? That would tell you how bad the retention was. Like, what did people not want to be asked? How can
Mhm.
we ask this in a way that gets us the answer, but also still like sort of convinces you to get through the application?
Mhm.
What can we put on the website that would sort of motivate you to apply to this, right? What do you want to see? information is it that doesn't scare you, but at the same time make sure that you know that you're aware of the commitment that this would sort of consist of.
Mhm.
And so striking that balance was a very iterative process. But at the same time, recruitment is one of the most fulfilling processes because of the people you meet, right? Because I'm able to have this conversation with you and have another meeting with someone else in the org that's from a completely different part of the world. Understanding that the value that community brings was maybe one of the biggest insights that I have in terms of recruitment, is leveraging community um, is brilliant because people love meeting new people and being love being part of a community.
Mhm.
And I think that made the whole